Told you it wouldn't be 3 months to my next video. Good morning. It is just gone 3 AM, and today I'm going to be discussing the lights, or the light up features of this guitar. Now, because it has been a while, let me just quickly break down how this worked. The guitar build itself, what I said was I would take the 4 or 5 individual elements of building this thing and the sort of aspects of it, and break them down into their own videos. So the first video was me just building the thing, like taking the wood and trying to get a functioning guitar out of it, plus also doing the sort of like the routing and the cutting and the carving and everything that went into it. That was video number 1. Video number 2 was the hydraulic system, so basically building an analog syringe driver and getting the blood to flow. That was part 2. Part 3 was the painting. Now the paint is done. It's very, very smooth, really nice to play. The neck feels fantastic. So the video today, I think I am going to quickly run you through not the lights, but the light up elements, like the light elements of this. The original concept for the lights was the scene in the film where Regan's on the bed, and underneath her nightdress, her nightdress is sort of like lifted slightly, and you can see her exposed midriff, like her stomach, and the words "help me" push their way through the skin. Super effective scene. And I thought, that's really, really cool. I want to incorporate that into the build somehow. How do I do it? Again, with all of these things, like the stenciling, like all of my little builds go back to something I've already built. So elements of my Raspberry Pi builds or my controller builds or everything just find their way into this. Kind of like an all roads lead to Rome kind of thing. Everything is kind of like converging on this one build. So way back, I built a Raspberry Pi arcade machine. A tiny little bubble arcade machine. It was super cute. Anyway, the screen behind it was sandwiched layers. So the front layer was just a piece of off-cut of perspex, nothing, fancy. Behind that was a layer of black spray paint, and then behind that was a light gel, and then behind that was an LED, right? So when you put them all sandwiched together, the light would shine through the colored gel, then it would go through the hole in the paint, then it would go through the perspex and come out, and it would essentially look like a screen. I really, really like that build, and I like the way that I managed to get a lot of detail into basically a relatively thin area. So I thought, well, I'll just do that again. I'll just incorporate that. And again, the concept of the front of the guitar being the entire, like a scratch plate being the entire front of the guitar, goes back to Toddler's high chair. Toddler eats something messy like beans or spaghetti or chocolate syrup or whatever, and it's everywhere. If that's made of wood, if that high chair is made of wood, it's going to stain. They're all made of white plastic. You just literally get a baby wipe and wipe it over. Considering that I'm covering this guitar in blood, I need something that's wiped clean. Perspex. So, and in that lies an inherent problem, which I found out later, which I'll come back to. So the idea was, well, I can shine light through that, but I want it to be white. So I can't do it the same as I did the arcade machine, where it's got like the detail cut out of it. I'll stick it on the back. So that was the idea. So what I wanted was a dial or a switch or something where I could turn it on, and what was previously just block white would have words coming through it. So how do I do that? And the solution is, like all of this stuff, trying to keep it as simple as possible. Like, I don't want any microprocessors, I don't want to have to program anything, I don't want to have to code anything, I don't want PCBs, I want it as analog as possible, because A, it's cheaper, and B, I don't even know how to do that. So I'm just trying to keep my costs down. Looking at all the aspects of things of this guitar that light up today, I'm going to run you through the lights, the help me lights at the front, and also the glowing fret markers down the side. And also I made the switch, so the switch that actually turns on the lights. I also made that of glow-in-the-dark material as well, because if you're turning on lights in a dark room, you need to know where the switch is. And if everything is one color, you're not going to be able to see it. So in a pitch black room, you can still see the light switch. So yeah, let me, guitar's over there. I'm going to quickly put it down on this little desk like I did before and swing you around and let's take a look at it. So because this is such a simple concept, let's start right here. This is the Scratch Plate Mark II. I am currently working on building Scratch Plate Mark III. And also I like referring to them as Mark II and Mark III. Mostly because it makes me sound like Tony Stark and not a person that's ballsed it up twice. So let's break down essentially what this is. Now, if you haven't seen my original build video, what this is a sheet of clear perspex. Just Amazon ordered clear perspex. Which again, I'll get back to, but it does have inherent problems. And what it is it's cut and shaped exactly to the shape of the guitar. And then I don't paint the front, I actually paint the back. And the reason I paint the back is that you can scratch this and ding it and do whatever you want. The paint is never going to chip off because the paint is on the underside. So it really doesn't matter what you do with this. Secondly, if I'm covering it in something like the fake blood, I don't know how that's going to stain it over time, so I didn't want it to go pink. So because the paint's on the other side, it's wiped clean. That's the first thing. The downside to that is that this perspex is insanely brittle, so it doesn't really have much give in it at all. And the reason this is a Mark II is because as I was pushing in the little grommet that I built here, it cracked. So again, I'm Tony Stark. Not a guy that's ballsed it up. So this is Mark II. Mark III will be way better, don't worry about it. Why that's, that's the way it is purely because I didn't want it to stain and I didn't want the paint to chip. Just like my other builds, like my blood splattered PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 build, right? The paint is on the underside of the plastic controller. That way you can touch it, you can rub it, because with a controller, you're constantly touching, you're constantly rubbing. If the paint's on the outside, paint's going to wear off. Similar to this, because I'm constantly, like my arm is going to be rubbing along here, I'm going to be constantly wiping, the paint will just come off. So put the paint on the inside. The help me lights are actually down here. So when it's light, I mean, look, you can't see anything. It's pretty high reflective. It's just a block white. Let me show you what's on the underside. So on the underside, we have this. Now, obviously, it's back, it's the right way around here, but it's back to front. You know what I mean? So this is the right way around, back to front. So what I have here is very, very, very simple. This is a piece of clear acetate, and it's acetate that can be printed on with a laserjet printer. So what I did was I designed this help me, the way it's laid out here, and then printed it on clear acetate, cut out the lettering, so it was just now a clear piece of acetate with the words help me cut out of it. Then what I did was spray it black, like a matte black. So again, it works just like like those, just like the little arcade machine, the bubble bobble machine that I built. Same concept. Words cut out of a clear piece of plastic, sprayed black. Put a light behind it, it makes a nice, clear, defined letter shape. In between, you'll see red. Now, the red is what's known as a light gel. So my wife is a photographer. She uses lots of lights, and on the front of lights, you can put these things called gels. And all they are is essentially a piece of heat, not heat resistant, but well, it is slightly resistant. It's just so they don't set fire, but they can melt if they get too close. Heat resistant plastic that is clear, so light can shine through it. You can get different colors, you can blend the colors by putting different gels on top of each other. Very, very useful. So what I got the idea was, well, if I put the piece of printed acetate on sprayed black there, and then sandwiched in between, just like the arcade machine, sandwiched in between a light gel, in between the white perspex and the black, when the light hits it, the black will cut off the light will then go through the red gel, and then the red gel should go through here. So yeah, the only thing I would say is that when it's pressed against the guitar, you can still see a little bit of the black. So what I'm probably going to do is spray the this piece of acetate twice. I'm going to spray it once black, then like on this side, and then the other side I'm going to spray white, so you don't see like this very faint black diamond shape. Like here you can just about see it. The reason you've got this sort of like, you know, Superman sort of almost like emblem shape is that that is the exact size and the exact dimensions, with a little bit of overlap, of the what would be the pocket cut out for controls, so like your tone and volume controls. What I decided was my guitar's going to have one volume, that's it, and I actually moved that out of that control chamber, and in that control chamber I just put the lights. So that's why this shape is here. It's to stop light bleed, like light bleeding into other parts of the guitar. But yeah, I mean, the concept is super duper simple. So what I'm going to do is take the Mark II here, attach the Mark II to the guitar. But first I want to give you a quick look at the inside and show you, again, it's a super simple circuit, just like the syringe driver, really, really simple. But let me show you the circuitry inside before I clip this to it and show you the finished result. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the circuitry in exactly the same way as I ran you through the syringe driver here. Now, bearing in mind, this is an analog circuit, and not just one. There are 4 individual components of this guitar: the lights, the blood driver, the smoke machine, and the flame launcher, all running off of one 9-volt battery. It's going to get a bit messy in here, but you can see, if I zoom in, I have been trying to tidy up as I go along. So you can see little bits of, you know, I've bound the cables here, I've glued them in position here, and generally I'm trying to keep things as tidy as possible while I'm building. But when it's finished, all of this cable management will be way better than it is now. All right, so let's move in a little bit closer. Right. Like any circuit, I'm just going to take you through from beginning to end, and it is about as simple as it gets. So start out, you've got a 9-volt battery in here, just like any, you know, active pickup guitar, although this 9-volt battery never sees the pickups. This is a completely passive pickup, which runs out through these wires here, straight down to the input jack there, or output jack, depending on how you look at it. So these wires here are not part of the light circuit. They go through this little wall that I put in, and behind this tape here, which I'll get back to in a minute. But this wire here has nothing to do with these lights. Okay, so starting out, we've got a 9-volt battery. That feeds into this little terminal block, and all of the other 4 elements feed into the other side. So there's no switching, nothing else. That 9-volt battery is feeding all of these at the same time, and then individually they have, I mean, the blood driver's got 2 on and off switches, but they've got multiple on and off switches. So all controlled by the little 2 switches at the front, and this little switch here, and a little switch at the back. So I don't have to worry about like a master power switch or anything like that. It's just constantly on, if you want to call it that. So that feeds into here. Now, out of this block, we then come down to this potentiometer here. The reason it's covered in electrical tape is because there's a tiny little LED on there which shines through the plastic scratch plate, which I didn't like. I've also hacked off the end, so the stem of the potentiometer came out to about here. So what I did was I cut it all the way back so it's almost flush with the wood. You've got like 2 mil out, and then I've built this little rotary switch, which you can see clicks on and clicks off, and that goes all the way around. So you not only have lights on, lights off, but you can see how much you want the lights on. So the words, you can either pulse it or glow it, and you can do that manually here. The reason I put the switch here is because as you're playing, like here, you can slide your thumb up along here and just click. You know what I mean? I needed the controls to be where my hands are. So my hands are already along here. Lights. The control for the flame launcher is back here on the neck here, and the other 2 are down here. These 2 are ambidextrous. I can either, as I'm playing, go down here and do it with these fingers, or I can slide my hand up the neck all the way and click them here, because they are literally 2 buttons there. So let's go. So we go from the battery to the potentiometer. Then I turn on the potentiometer. What happens is when you click it on, and let's get both of them in shot, you can see the lights over here. Come on. Now these LEDs are pound shop LEDs. You cannot buy these anymore, right? I bought all of them because I did all my cabinets and everything else with them. They run on 5 volts and they're USB. What I did was I literally snipped the wire, and rather than run it into a 5 volt, USB, I run it through this wire down here to the potentiometer. Now this is on its lowest setting. When you turn it up, it's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this is it on its lowest setting, and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and eventually it's insanely bright. And that isn't even giving it the full 9 volts because this battery is basically dead. But so from here, when you click it on, you can have just a little bit, just a tiny little bit. You can flash it if you want just by rocking it backwards, or you can give it the full beans. Yeah, like literally, like it's like Belloc at the end of Raiders. Your face is just going to melt if you get it too close. So yeah, super simple circuit. It goes 9 volts into this sort of like terminal block, then feeds out into the potentiometer, which then comes down this wire and then goes into here. Like I say, this never sees this pickup jack. The pickup jack actually goes down behind here. Now, this silvery paper that is here is actually, when you get a bicycle jacket or whatnot and you want to cover it in that reflective tape so the cars can see you, that's what this is. So in a similar way of covering the inside cavity for the pickup in copper to make a Faraday cage so you don't get any of that hum or any of that, nastiness, I thought, well, if I'm doing this with copper, like self-adhesive copper, why don't I just do the same thing over here with bicycle tape? So all of this sort of like silvery stuff you see here is actually exactly the same process as that. The input jack is here, and then the wire for the input jack goes behind the reflective tape, and also a strip of copper also goes out, so it'll ground it. So all of this is grounded as well. So yeah, a strip of copper, then the wire, and then on top of that is this bicycle stuff. But yeah, the input jack never sees this chamber. This chamber is completely sealed because I needed as much light and as less light bleed as possible. So that's why the back of the scratch plate looks like it does. That actually covers and goes a little bit over there because I just wanted to essentially hotbox that light so none of it bleeds out into the rest of the guitar. Another quick thing to add as well, you'll notice that all of these wires are exactly the same color. And the reason that is because you can go on eBay, you can go on Amazon, and you can order wire, like electronics wire, and it's not expensive, but for what you get, it's not cheap either. However, if you go into somewhere like Wilko's, for anyone outside the UK, Wilko's is like a discount shop. They do everything: hardware, furniture, toys for kids, sweets, whatever. You can get speaker wire, or I should say, you used to be able to get speaker wire for 25p a meter. Like, that's pretty cheap. So I was thinking, well, seeing as I'm just carrying, electrical current, not a lot of it, like maximum 9 volts, but a really, how much am I actually going to carry to these? Why not just use speaker wire? So I bought meters of it, right? 25p a meter. Now, since the B word that shall not be named, since that, this has now doubled. So this is now over 50p a meter. But still, it's pretty cheap. So I just, all of this is just speaker wire that goes down, because I'm only, like I say, carrying a small bit of current. And everything uses it. The smoke machine uses it. The launcher uses it. The blood driver. It's all speaker wire. So yeah, that's, like I say, super simple circuit. I'm going to screw on the scratch plate now, the front cover, and then really give those lights a show, and then you'll see essentially what it looks like. Okay, now with the scratch plate finally added on the front, you can kind of see what I've had in my head all this time. It's finally beginning to, pardon the pun, it sort of take shape. So yeah, the scratch plate's on the front now, and which does highlight that issue I've had where you can kind of still see the cavity through. So I think I'm going to have to spray the attached bit of this acetate. So the side that you've seen will still be black, but then I'll do a white pass before sticking it to the underside of the painted perspex. Also, I'm obviously going to have to double up down here as well. There isn't a lot of pressure on the scratch plate as well, because obviously the bridge isn't in, the strings aren't in, like there's not a lot of pressure pushing it onto the body yet, just these little electronic screws that I put in to hold it, so they're subtle. So yeah, but yeah, it does prove that there is a little bit more work to do on the Mark III. So what I'm going to do now is turn the lights off and let's see what this thing looks like. So there is quite a lot of ambient light in here, but it should hopefully look pretty dope. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start very, very subtly and then brighten it as I go. So that's it on its lowest setting. You can see it's just shining through there. Now I'm going to brighten it. So I'm just going to give it the full beans, and it does look absolutely awesome. Like, I love that. The camera's not doing it, like the camera's really not doing it justice, because the further I pull it out, the more blurry it looks. But when you get up close, it looks awesome. And there's none of this, like to the naked eye, there's none of that light bleed around the end. But yeah, let's turn it off. So very, very subtly down, and then you can just have it there if you want it, and then off. So yeah, I am super, super duper happy with the way that looks. It just needs a little bit of refining, but for where it is, I am absolutely happy with that at the moment. Hopefully the next one will look better. Well, the next one will look better because I know what I'm doing now. I've had enough time to refine it. So yeah, the next one's going to look absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's talk about fret markers. Okay, I'm in a place where I hope this focuses. So, like I was saying before, given the choice, I would have absolutely no inlays on the fretboard at all. But given the choice, I would rather have block inlays or, you know, large chunky rectangular inlays than dot inlays. Because this is a Flying V, because this is essentially like a sort of Gibson-esque guitar, the block inlays were a must. I did not want dot inlays. And the construction on the neck was pretty poor, to the point where I had to, you know, like file down the frets and even move a couple of the frets. It was just, yeah, some of them are going to need replacing as well. So along the edge, we had dot inlays, and they were even worse. Like the way that they were put in was really bad. I don't know how they were made, but they were uncomfortable to use. You could actually feel them, which is never a good sign. So what I've done is I have taken a razor blade and cut out all of the dot inlays all the way down. What I've replaced them with was believe it or not, a child's toy. Now, my daughter, who was 6 at the time, had this, like, it was a really sort of like inexpensive paint your own rocks, you know, collection, which had a few acrylic paints in it, a couple of really cheap paintbrushes, and some like pebbles. Some of the pebbles were ceramic, some of them were see-through, some of them were like plastic, but then there were a few of them which glowed in the dark. And these kids are encouraged to paint them with things, and, you know, they glow in the dark. So what I did was that I took one of these glow in the dark like pebbles and cut it and filed it and sanded it into a long, thin rectangular sliver, and then cut that sliver into pieces no bigger than a grain of rice. And I have set them inside the plastic binding. Now, whereas before you could feel them, now this is completely smooth. If you close your eyes, you would never know that they were even there. You would know that the fret ends were there because they're really badly done, but you would never know that the markers are there. It's not brilliant. It's absolutely not brilliant. But, you know, for someone who's trying to figure it out, let's see if this focuses up. For someone who's trying to figure out as he goes along and using a child's toy and a razor blade, that's not a bad job. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think I did really well. So The fret markers themselves actually glow in the dark. They glow blue. So all of these rectangular rice grain markers now glow in the dark blue. On the 12th, I actually put a little cross. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I cut out a little cross for the 12th. And again, it's completely smooth. You can't feel it, even though it does actually creep over the binding. I actually set it in the binding there, which I thought looked really cool. So yeah, that, again, completely smooth. Can't feel it, but I like the little cross in there. And then all the way down here, you have this light switch, which essentially controls the lights that we just saw down here. Now, this plastic toy pebble, for as brittle as the Perspex is at the front, this thing is 10 times worse. This stuff just shatters like glass. It is full of tiny little bubbles, like imperfections, which look really cool. I mean, I love the way the little bubbles sit in it there. In fact, I love the bubbles in the fret markers as well. All the little fret markers have got these tiny little bubbles. This is not going to focus. They've got these tiny little bubbles in the fret markers, which I think looks awesome. So yeah, you've got all these little bubbles in there, but that does mean that it just, one slip with a saw, one slip with a razor blade, and that's it. It just shatters. And this is very, very thin. This is like razor thin, this knob that essentially I put there. The white dot on the end, that is just a little furniture cap that you put on furniture screws from Wilko's. Very, 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 very cheap, but overly effective. What I wanted to do with this was make like a planchette, like for a Ouija board. So you know the part where she's talking to, what is it, Captain Howdy on the Ouija board? I wanted to make that into a little planchette, just to add a nice little detail, but this stuff is so brittle that after a couple of failed attempts, I was like, nah, just going to get a little plastic furniture screw cap from Wilko's, put that on the top. It looks all right. So yeah, what I'm going to do is take this into a pitch black room, and you can see them glow away. All right, now this is going to be an absolute focusing nightmare, but I'll give it my best shot. Here we go, lights off. There we go. So we've got lovely blue fret markers, and let's see if this will focus. Let's try it. No, can't do it. But there is a cross on the 12th, and then as you go down, the light switch here is glowing blue, so you can see it should you need to put these on in the dark. But yeah, where's the actual light switch? There we go. Yeah, there you go. So we've got glowing blue fret markers, and help me shining out the front. So what's next? I think next we're gonna have a little butchers at the smoke machine, and I can show you how it works and how I designed it. All right, cool. Until next time. Peace.